Yeah, so
Call to order, please.
Congratulations.
For the Swampscott School Committee,
My
Wednesday,
password.
January 10th, 7 o'clock. You could all stand and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nice to see a big crowd here tonight. Welcome, everybody. Trish, has anybody signed up for public comment? If anybody would like an opportunity to speak tonight, if you could sign up.
This is the time, actually.
This is the time? Okay, so we'll jump right into community announcements. If you'd like to start, Mr. Delano?
I don't have anything.
Anything?
no. Midterms coming up, mindfulness stuff is happening, which is good.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'm not totally informed, but I know there's sort of like a mindfulness initiative going on. I think during sort of the midterm breaks, you can go down with Mr. Harris or Chuck Foster and sort of take a break, which I think is really good that we're doing that. So yeah.
In the classrooms when you go, we're prepping for midterms
Yeah.
on Monday, and it was a little frightening the video that was going on.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's awesome. I had a comment. I've been seeing a lot of social media stuff or just people talking about snow plowing and stuff. I mean, I saw our custodians out, I mean, doing paths around the school and some of sort of the public sidewalks that aren't even necessarily school property. But so I see that people are speaking with the town administrator a lot about this, and I know DPW obviously is like super understaffed. And I know there's neighborhood helpers and snow angels and all those people trying to help people. I mean, are we trying to make, I'm just.
Just finish your thought. Are we?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, I see, so, driving back and forth down Forest, obviously, there's places that aren't plowed, like near some intersections, and kids are walking out and then walking back in, as
Over
best they can, or over the snowbanks, whatever, and everyone's making do, and cars aren't speeding, and everyone seems to be, trying to be as respectful as possible about that, but is there a plan for trying to help at least clear major pathways to school?
The I had a meeting this morning with Mr. Fitzgerald about a variety of things, and one of the things that we were talking about is actually publicizing the stages of snow cleanup. So the short answer is no, but one of the things that has happened, and I go back to my Stanley Principal days, is, they do the major areas, then the schools, the school sidewalks get done by the DPW around the schools. The neighborhoods are really the neighborhood's responsibility, and then probably 2 or 3 days after the storm is cleared is when they start moving all the piles that are blocking those intersections. So I truly expected them to be out there still moving snow, and I haven't seen it occurring. But he and I were saying that we should get together and just remind the community about the stages of what happens. Those snow piles around Clark, at the bottom of Stanley, aren't going to be moved by the time we come back to school, because that's like the 3rd or 4th stage of the cleanup. But Mr. Fitzgerald was saying, we need to remind the neighbors that if you're in the area of a walking path to school, it really is their responsibility.
Like, do you think maybe we could put letters in people's boxes, like in their doorways or something, and just say you're on a path to school? Is there a way we can help you clear your path, or can we find someone that can help you clear your path? If you can't do it yourself, or, because, and I can appreciate that when snow gets moved by private plows and things like that, I mean, even the snow plow goes down your street 3 times, and every time you shovel, you're like, oh my God, I'm locked in again. So I get like that people are getting massive piles and they're really tough to move, but maybe there's like a way we can do some sort of
Outreach.
Yeah, I don't know, like, and I know it doesn't impact very many days, but when it
This
does,
last snow, it does.
there's just a lot of grumbling, and maybe it's something we can preempt.
Yeah, I wonder if high schoolers should get involved with that, because I know I think
Well,
a lot of kids would want to.
The Big Blue Crew, I bet, would do it.
Yeah, I could talk to
And
Yeah.
community service.
Right, exactly. Everyone's
Hours
always
back.
these
Right,
hours.
Yeah.
So if the school could find people who want help, we could
Yeah.
sort of do some matchmaking or something. I mean,
Yeah.
Connect them with, yeah,
there's organizations, but I just think we could,
let's work on that, Oliver.
Yeah.
If you can investigate it on your end, then we can coordinate
All right.
and
Yeah, that'd be
get
cool.
letters, and that would be great.
Yeah.
What great idea.
nice work. That's what you can do in your free time since you're not doing applications.
Yeah, true.
Okay.
I do have anything.
Okay. Do you have anything?
I just wanted to thank Mr. Kalishman for sending out that memo today about vaping. And I just thought it was a great way to raise awareness with our students and parents, for parents to open up and have that conversation with your child about dangers of vaping, marijuana, all that stuff. It was very great that he sent out pictures of what it can look like. I mean, I had no idea it was in a bracelet form. That was news to me. So anyway, I just want to thank him for putting that memo out to the.
Can I add to that too? I know I'm probably not supposed to,
No,
but
please do.
before the holidays, we actually had somebody come into the high school with police presence and the administrators, and it was actually somebody who owns a store. And so he brought in the actual vapes and jewels and all of those things.
Yeah.
And that's when we discovered those rope bracelets that have, isn't that frightening?
Yeah.
So I think the 2.0 version was well done today.
Right.
But I think the pictures were powerful for people. And Mr. Kalishman, I met with him this morning, and he said, you know, what I want to get out there is, they don't need thumb drives. We're all Google, so if your kid's telling you he needs thumb drive, they don't. So
Oh, but it's
that
a
was,
great conversation starter too, to
It is.
just, and then the pictures, show the pictures, because that was very powerful, so I appreciate that.
I know that that bracelet in particular was a big topic of conversation at our dinner table tonight. Not seen it, and I appreciate that. I like to think that I have an idea of what's going on. That was a surprise, so. Especially,
Never heard of that.
okay, and I don't have anything.
We'll get the attraction.
So, give me a second. Okay, so let's move into, tonight we are putting the school business administrator up first, since it's the biggest issue that we're dealing with now. So, Mr. Katz, if you can start us with the current budget.
Okay, thank you. This follows up for the school committee. We had a budget subcommittee meeting on Monday where we spent a lot of time going through the fiscal 18 report. So I'm going to go through that in a little faster, since I know people want to spend more time on the current year's budget. So there's a one-page summary, and then there's an attached upload of the Munis software that we use to track the school budget, which is the first time that we've developed a way to project using the actual information in Munis, and it's allowed us to look at the lines in a little more detail and come up with some more accurate projection earlier in the fiscal year. So I'll just walk you through this memo here, and the Munis report that we used was dated as of December 22nd. And the highlights are, there were a couple of areas that were under budget that were pretty evident, that were significant. One is unemployment. Claims we projected are a little less than what they were. And we've had a number of vacancies, both in teaching positions and aid positions in the district. And that's allowed some savings to help offset some of the budget overages. But those are the two things that are under budget. Over budget, the telephone budget is a little high right now because we had planned to upgrade the system over the summer, and that didn't take place due to the final expense. So we had put the savings into the budget, but the savings did not materialize. Our substitute budget is over significantly, $50,000 to $100,000, based on the number of leaves of absences that we've had. We've had some absences in the nursing area, which are more expensive to cover. Also, custodial overtime is a little over budget. We also had a special education teacher at the Hadley School we had to hire during the middle of the year. That's about $50,000 that we hadn't planned on. And then special education tuition and transportation combined are about $20,000 over budget. So it's a number of areas that are over budget right now. We're also keeping an eye on facilities maintenance. We expect that will need the entire budget we have set aside. And then energy, of course, is depending on pricing and weather. And we've also had some repairs to our systems that are actually helping in some areas. And then technology, it depends upon hardware replacement and any software we need between now and the end of the year, so we're keeping an eye on those things. But the bottom line here is that we still have about 60% of the school days to go, so the bills don't come in till afterwards, although we have projections in place. The bottom line is we're approximately $100,000 over budget based on current projections, so we're not even halfway through the year yet, so there's a long way to go and things could change, but at this point, it's the areas where we're over budget are outweighing the areas that we're under budget, and we'll keep tracking it, and I'll be continuing to report to the school committee roughly about once a month on this, using this same format.
I know that we talked about this at our last budget subcommittee meeting, but can you remind me, the money that we are currently over budget right now, is that actual or actual plus projected?
Year-to-date expenses, and then projected forward the balance of the year, just a best estimate.
Okay.
The salaries are pretty clear because
Is there salary?
we can project those forward for the people who are there. Expenses is a little more predictive, and so it's subject to plus and minus. But every month we get closer to the end, the projection becomes more and more reliable.
Does anybody have any questions?
Not a question, but I was just gonna say, obviously we get updated on this all the time, and we hope as the months go by that it gets better, and sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But, we had talked a little bit about, what do we do about this? How do we come in on budget, because that's the goal. So, I think we need to look at instituting a spending freeze on the things that are not essential between now and the end of the year. And I think that's something that we should discuss as a committee.
And we can revisit that too, as like things come in.
As things change.
We get closer and closer and things are more, numbers are more reliable or look more positive.
So from a practical standpoint, what does that mean?
I mean, I'm assuming that any kind of expenditure is already reviewed and looked over. But when things are tight like this, sometimes you need to go a step further.
Well, one of the things I think we discussed is the fact that, non-essential, PD and curriculum money is essential, and anything that's going to hold up the operations of the district is essential, though reviewed by Evan, reviewed by me. But it's the non-essential stuff, it's the little things that are gonna add up as the year goes on, and I do think, health and safety are essential. It's the technology that would be frozen. It is non-essential.
Okay.
I feel like we're at a really good place to be $106,000 or $100,000 over, considering 50,000 of that was the new special education teacher, 20,000 is special ed transportation, that's 70 of the 106, but
So
I
that
think we have
it's
to
predictive costs as opposed to runaway.
I think we need to monitor it monthly, the way Mr. Katz does, and at this point, slow things down, and then just get the updates monthly.
So it's like a soft
Nope,
freeze
we're
on.
not using soft.
Like-
We're gonna do hard
like,
right now.
I mean,
We're gonna do hard.
Just freeze, like,
Right.
just not do non-essentials till we sort of get a better grip on.
What's happening over the next couple of months?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Are the nurses going to come back?
They are.
Right?
But one of the things that we talked about at the subcommittee meeting is that, and I think it's in Mr. Katz's presentation, is that nurses aren't your typical sub rate. They're $35, $40 an hour.
Right.
Versus the full-day teacher substitute. So these have been long-term absences due to medical, reasons, and that's impacted the substitute line.
I mean, I think the number.
Dramatically.
Yeah, I think the number $2,000 a day, every day from now.
That's what we've been averaging.
Is what is being predicted.
System-wide.
Right.
Right, system.
So if you play out, $2,000 a day for the remaining days of the year,
That's
that's where we're at.
the current rate. If things slow down, we can pick that up right away. The
Right.
projection will go down.
Is that something that we need to vote on, or
I
as
don't,
a committee?
I don't think so. As a matter of procedure,
I don't think it's, needs to be voted, I think you're giving me a directive.
okay, there we go.
Or
And
Mr.,
we'll-
and I'm giving you, Mr. Katz, a
Right.
directive.
And we'll follow up with
Pass it on.
appropriate messages to the senior staff so they're aware. And we have a good process in place for reviewing if it's, I check on my own, if it's an area that I'm not as familiar with as others, we'll check with the appropriate person in the central office and get the feedback that we need.
So I think in order maybe to save some pain around this bi-weekly meeting, especially as it relates to the warrants for billing, that, would it be fair to assume that everything that does come across for our signature will be expenses that had been planned? And if there is anything that was unexpected or new, that be flagged? Is that fair?
It's fair, and the way the process, as Suzanne reminded me, is that the questions, is just send the questions to Evan.
Okay.
And if you're asking for a justification for why we approved something, we can provide that.
Just one thing to keep in mind is that we have a lot of things, purchase orders that have been approved, and sometimes it takes a while for them to.
Right, so
Right.
it's those
Filter through.
pieces that I don't wanna, have to,
Get hung up on,
I mean, the dates on whether it's the
Yeah, there's
purchase order or the invoice would be a pretty good indication of whether it was something that had been approved in the fall or early winter. I mean, last year when we put the freeze in place, and we did it a lot earlier, the number of purchase orders dropped significantly. So you'll see a decrease, but not for a while.
okay. Okay. Close.
I think that's
Everybody have any other comments on fiscal 18? Okay, so let's move into the fiscal 19 budget. And Superintendent, you're gonna start with that?
I am going to start. So tonight, we're presenting to you a preliminary first draft budget. I want to take you through the story of how we've come to where we've come tonight. As everybody knows on the committee, there's been so much that happened over the last few months while we've been thinking about forming the FY19 budget. We had the MSBA Senior Study site visit in October, the financial presentation by selectmen at special town meeting, and our success in being invited into the MSBA program and our SOI being accepted for Hadley. As I mentioned at the last school committee meeting, the large percentage of increases that the town has allocated for the school department, they're just not sustainable. In FY16, we received 4.3% increase. In FY17, we received a 4.2% increase. And in FY18, we received a 3.5% increase. But in addition to that increase in allocation, the town absorbed some of our expenses, one of them being snow removal, another one being some facilities, and some facilities costs. If we were to roll over our current budget, we would be asking for an allocation of about 5%. It's just unreasonable. In addition to these figures, you, as a committee, directed me to bring in a budget with a 2.5% increase. So my leadership team and I spent hours in the last couple months reflecting, brainstorming, and reprioritizing how we would move forward. We put everything on the table. We looked at creating grade level schools next year at the elementary level. We looked at aligning the middle school and high school schedules. The middle school schedule is a 4-day rotating schedule, and the high school schedule is a 7-day waterfall schedule. We looked at athletics. We're still looking at athletics. We looked at overall just how we're doing things, all while keeping our educational vision in mind and our district goals. I know this committee knows this, but make no mistake, we have issues at all 3 of our elementary schools. We have major space issues, and they just can't wait for a new building. They need to be addressed now. During the MSBA site visit, their team were not only convinced of our district's needs due to the age of Hadley and the systems at Hadley, but they're absolutely appalled at the issues at Stanley and Clark schools, which is why we are currently in the process of writing statement of interest for those schools for submission to the MSBA in early April. Clark School is bursting at the seams, and because of this, we have to move one of our substantially separate programs next year. This is a must-do. The amount of teaching and learning that is occurring in our elementary hallways is another major issue. It is neither acceptable or appropriate for our students and teachers. The budget proposal is also about equity. Equity for our students, equity for our teachers, and equity in learning space. For years, we've been creating educational spaces in hallways, supply closets, under stairwells, and on landings. This is not acceptable. We're out of options. This is not the standard of education our students and teachers deserve. It's time to make a change. And with that, I turn it over to Mr. Katz.
Okay, thank you. So there's 3 pieces of paper here. There's a summary of the budget. There's no actual budget document because we have to make some decisions before we start actually developing that. We'll have that when we have the public hearing in 2 weeks on the 24th. So the top sheet shows last year's budget and this year's budget. On the right side, the number the superintendent talked about, if we rolled the budget over, there's a number circled on the right side with a budget increase of about $1,450,000. That would have been about a 5% increase right there. And so this is the cover sheet of what it would look like if we had an increase of that size. So just to give you that as a benchmark. And just to point out, there's a couple of things also on the sheet. We are projecting some changes in revenue that are affecting how much money we need next year. We have the Gelfin grant, which has supported the school district for many years in the area of technology. And that grant is expiring, and there's a revenue loss of about $78,000 for that. We're also expecting a reduction in revenue from extended day for next year, so that's another $50,000 we're absorbing. There's also some movement behind the scenes involving money that we get from the town for cable TV. It doesn't affect the bottom line, but it is on the sheet here. So there's 2 pieces of revenue that we're losing: the extended day for $50,000, the Gelfin grant for $78,000. That's part of the reason why, if you rolled the budget forward, we would need about a 5% increase. So beyond that, there's 2 pieces of paper. One is a summary page, which ties back to the detail page. And I will walk you through quickly the summary page to get to the bottom line, where the superintendent talked about a 2.5% increase.
Can you hold on for 1 minute? Suzanne, are you pulling those up online?
There are also some handouts. There's not a whole lot, but if people want to grab the handouts, they're welcome to.
If we just, I just want to, I don't want to hamstring anybody, so we'll just take a pause. Oh, yeah.
Should give us-
So I'm going to go back to that for a second.
No, okay.
Is that,
That's
are
right.
you on the same page?
Yep. That's where we're at, right?
Yep.
Well, we're going on the summary page, right? We're on
Ready
this,
for the summary page? We can go to the summary
we're
page.
going on the summary page.
Okay.
It's the next stop. Okay, so this is a summary of what is on the more detailed page, which lists item by item where the projected changes are. But I'll just walk you through to orient you to the major pieces. So there's some program increases, some staffing that we have to include in next year's budget. That's about an addition of $212,000. there are budget adjustments where we have to increase certain lines that are insufficient this year for $233,000. The reductions, which the superintendent is bringing forward tonight, total of about $423,000. The $97,000 that's listed there is the cable TV treatment of revenue, which is not a change in position, just a budgetary piece. Other resources are places where we have additional revenue that we can apply towards the budget. And then we've identified about $50,000 of fees. So that would generate a reduction in the budget of about $233,000, that bottom line there. Then the increase part is that salary increases, contractual and projected, is about $764,000. There's a revenue reduction that I talked about a minute ago, and there's the cable TV piece again. So that creates a need of $989,000, and when you put those two numbers together, you get about $756,000 increase, which is close to 2.5%. I will make a note that as of right now in the budget, we are not changing the special education tuition or transportation amounts because they fluctuate so much, but as of right now, we're projecting about a $100,000 increase in special ed transportation, and that is not in the budget because it's early, number one, and we're hoping that the possibility of having a special education stabilization fund, which we've talked to the Selectmen and Finance Committee about as a possibility that might help us deal with that. So if you just scroll up, if anyone can just scroll up really quickly to talk about the next steps, just to understand how tonight's meeting fits in with what's coming up. The town budget allocation, we've got our guidance on that. We're talking about establishing a special education stabilization fund. There'll be some more conversation about that. The meeting schedule is tonight's meeting. Next week, the school committee is meeting for a presentation on the athletic department budget and user fees. 2 weeks from tonight is the school committee public hearing on the budget. And then in the middle of February, the school committee is scheduled to take a vote on the budget. So that is the overview.
February 14th, is that?
Committee comments or anything?
February 14th, that's not school vacation week, is it?
No,
No,
it's the
okay.
following week.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What is the extended day, $50,000? What is that about, the decrease?
Just a projection of revenue for next year and how much money extended day can support the school budget. We rely on extended day to support certain parts of the budget. We're not sure we can continue to sustain the level that they're supporting it right now.
Is there a decrease in, or are you anticipating a decrease in students, or are there increases in expenses for extended day?
We're looking at all of that.
And some expenses are up.
Okay.
It's, again, it's one of those things that's a little early, and we figured that if there was a possibility it might happen, we'll include it now. We'll get a little more information as the budget process unfolds.
So that could be less,
And we wanted to,
but we want to be conservative.
we didn't want to have any surprises
Okay.
3 or 4 weeks from now. So now we'll go to the more detailed document, and I will summarize the information behind this summary.
Evan, just one quick question before we switch. On that, establish the special ed stabilization fund, can we do that on our own?
No.
No,
It's got to be a warrant?
We need the town.
I should have explained that's the town has a stabilization fund that has been around for many, many years, and a few years ago, the state legislature allowed communities to establish a stabilization fund specifically for special education with slightly different rules behind it. And it does require town meeting action to create it and then to fund it.
Okay.
but we have had a commitment from the town administrator that moving forward to the May town meeting, he would pursue that with us.
Okay.
And finance committee,
Yes.
Support.
and finance committee support. And obviously, you know, a lot of that is going to be predicated on what, when we go through our budget with them.
Okay, so what I'll do here is elaborate on the information that is on that cover sheet, and just people can understand that we're still early in the budget process. A lot of these amounts are estimates, and as the school department is evaluating, and department heads and principals are evaluating things, projections change, needs change. So this is the starting point, and we'll obviously, over the next month or so, refine this and get to the detailed level that we need. So, but these are estimates and projections at this point, and a starting point in the process. So the program increases at the top is, as I mentioned earlier, special education out of district is sufficient right now. Based on current projections, there's a need for 1.5 new English language learner teachers for $105,000. The special ed teacher at Hadley School that I mentioned earlier that isn't in the budget for this year needs to be funded next year. And then there's a need for an additional .3 special ed teacher. So there's the first piece, $212,000 from that first page.
And can you just explain that, the .2 now at middle school, .3?
Right now, there's a position that's presently .2 at the middle school and .3 at Clark, and this would increase the position from a .5 to a .8.
Okay, thanks.
And the next section are the areas where, at this point, appear to be underfunded in the budget. The substitute budget is insufficient, as I mentioned earlier on the report, for this year. Energy may need an increase. If we do not, we were hoping to get funding in the capital budget for the telephone system installation. If that happens, we can incorporate some of the savings that we were hoping to have this year in the budget. The high school cleaning contract is up next year. We're projecting an increase in that. We're going to be funding separately something that now doesn't have its own home in the budget, and we don't have a dedicated funding source for mentoring and transition when leadership positions are vacant and we have new staff coming in. We've added crossing guards. There's now 29 shifts that we cover every day. The superintendent expense line needs to be increased. We have the second year of the transportation contract for Metco, special ed, and regular ed. There's an increase there. We have to adjust the schedule for coaches at the middle school and high school for athletics. And then we have a small amount for training for substitutes. So there's the $233,000 that was mentioned earlier.
How many, just out of curiosity, we have 29 shifts now for crossing guards. What, do you know off the top of your head what it had been?
We did,
24, 25.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
I think we increased it by 3 crossing guards, 2 or 3 crossing guards.
okay.
Yeah.
Why is the high school, why is it 15% increase? on the
Well,
contract?
it was bid
Oh,
almost
sorry.
3 years ago, and it's going to be a contract that's going to run for probably 3 years. And generally what happens is they step up significantly because what they try to do is hold their price for 3 years.
Oh, okay.
And the labor market's changed also since we did that. It's again, a little conservative, but we need to make sure we have enough money for that.
Can I just go back and talk about a couple of those items?
Please.
I just want to remind the committee that the telephone cost was because we were going from analog to digital because of the issues we have at buildings. And we thought we would get that done this year. And so we already put the $25,000 savings in, but now we need to move it forward to FY19. And the other piece that I want to highlight is the substitute software and training. We brought to you a couple of meetings ago that we are investigating training for our substitutes, so we don't just have warm bodies, but there's actually content that they can be trained on in order to better service our kids.
And the $12,000 superintendent expense?
What was it? It used to be a couple years ago, was higher than this. What was it?
Is this for
FY?
legal fees?
It's just
Oh, no, legal is entirely separate.
Oh,
the budget is not sufficient for the needs of the office.
okay.
So this is just the first read, and then if we have,
This isn't the first read.
I mean, not the first read, this is just the first discussion, and if we have questions, we're gonna email you.
That would be great. Yeah,
And we have another
subcommittee.
committee of the whole for the budget between now and the first read, right?
Yes,
In the hearing, right?
that'd be a good
In
idea.
the public hearing.
And the first read is the public hearing. And that's when everybody comes and we go through all
And
the
public
lines.
can- Yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, no, the questions are good. So, and these are the major changes that are now under review, and I know there'll be more discussion of these later on, but just to, basically, at the high school, there would be an English language arts teacher and a special ed teacher eliminated. At the high school, part-time administrative assistant in the nurse's office. At the middle school, a position in the Swift Harbor program that was set up this year. Another position in the middle school that will be determined. We thought it might be the health program, but now we're reevaluating that. And then in the elementary level, 1 classroom per grade, grades K through 4, that would be 5 positions. And to help support that for areas of high need or larger classes, 2 of those positions would be retained, so there'd be a net reduction of 3 positions. And then an additional position still under review for about $48,000. So those would be the major changes, a reduction of about 8.5 positions in that section. We'll jump over the cable TV again, and then these are areas in the next section that our resources, the school budget, can help reduce the budget. We funded 3 payments for the early retirement program this year of $45,000. We don't have to repeat that. We had some vacancies now for positions that were funded for the part of the year. That's $50,000. A couple of other positions that are vacant that I mentioned earlier, that in the budget this year, we have some vacancies that are supporting some of the areas that we're over. These are 2 of those positions. They're special education, so they're subject to review. We can budget a little closer to actual revenue for Circuit Breaker, which is the state program for special education and our preschool tuition. We have turnover savings for a couple of retirements, $40,000 and $35,000, and we have to increase funding for a position involving a teacher returning from leave, but the net revenue is that helps us to the tune of $302,000. The last section are fees, where we would possibly increase lunch prices by 25 cents. We haven't done that since the year before last. Increase driver ed and building rental fees by about 15%. That'd bring in $10,000. Athletics, again, a topic for next week's meeting, possibly increasing the user fees. And then another possibility is that we do have some staff that are specifically hired to support Nahant students, and we would possibly bill Nahant for the benefits related to those staff, since the town does include that in their budget.
But but their salaries are already paid for.
Their salaries are
And
covered
Nahant
by
already
Nahant,
pays the
right.
salaries, but we would have them absorb the benefits piece. So that's the $233,000 from the front page, and then here's the additional salaries that we talked about earlier, $764,000. The revenue reduction we talked about earlier, and then there's that cable TV position. Bottom line in blue, same number, $756,000, about 2.5% increase, and again, it does exclude the $100,000 increase in special ed transportation. So it's a lot of information, it's early.
Could you also highlight the also under review in the gray?
Yes, and also under review, yes, that's notation. We talked about the special ed stabilization fund. We have collective bargaining as an issue with 3 contracts under negotiation for next year. We also have minor capital and technology that we've submitted for funding by the town that we're hoping will be approved in a number of areas. And then anytime there are additional retirements, those would affect how we're going forward. But right now, we have to go with the information that we have in terms of staffing for next year.
And we
So
only have two pieces of information there, or 2
At this time,
retirements that we
yeah.
know of. Okay.
So again, it's early, this is the starting point, and this is based on the guidance that we got, and this is where we're starting. As I mentioned earlier, we've got a number of meetings to go. The public hearing is in
Oh, yeah.
2 weeks, and the school committee will be voting again on the 14th of February. So we have a ways to go, but this is the first pass at the budget for fiscal 19.
Thank you, Mr. Katz. For the committee, I have a couple additional comments because just where we go from here. One of the things that I'd like to highlight for the committee is that with the proposed reductions, the elementary class sizes would increase to about 21 to 23 students being the highest across the district, creating equity within those classrooms. We really are at the preliminary stages of these discussions and working out the details logistically. I have a meeting scheduled as early as this Friday to work with the team that helped to come up with this, and it includes the elementary principals, the Director of Curriculum Instruction, Director of Student Services, and Mr. Katz as well. We really need to continue to develop a strategy and lay out the process for how this would occur. The other piece to this, two other pieces in particular, next Thursday I have my monthly district PTO, PTF, PTA leadership team meeting, say that. And I look forward to the conversations beginning with the PTO leadership. I would like to schedule other parent conversations through their building level PTO meetings. And in the coming weeks, I do plan to attend staff meetings to have conversations with the teachers at each of the buildings. There are many, many more details that need to be planned out, and I'll keep parents, teachers, in the committee informed every step of the way. So though this has been presented to you tonight, there are a lot of logistics that need to be worked out, and those discussions will occur with parents, teachers, and the committee as well.
Can I ask just one question? On the Swift Harbor up at the middle school, how many do we have full-time up there now?
There's 3 full-time staff right now.
The caseload is determining what the need is.
For this reduction?
Do we know, I'm sort of honestly just curious why or eliminate, like what sort of allows us to eliminate the English language arts teacher? Like, is something changed, or is that just sort of a cut we have to make?
I missed a meeting.
Trying to remember within
Good question.
conversations. It was consolidation of class, like they were able to do it with classes and scheduling. Wasn't, no, I don't think there's any elimination of anything, just the scheduling.
I actually remember it was because of the media teacher who teaches English, moving into that department.
So there'll be a shift and a move.
Yeah.
So there'll be a savings as a result.
So it wasn't like a class being cut that students would not
No.
be able to attend?
No.
Okay.
There's definitely some areas,
We can get that information to you.
Mrs. Klondike and I were talking, though, you know, part of this is looking at the district K-12, which is my responsibility, and though, you know, it seems that the area of focus this year is elementary, we've been looking a lot at high school, classes, caseloads, number of students, scheduling, and so if we can find ways to create efficiencies that aren't detrimental to our kids and still offer the number of classes, then that's where we'll be going next. So, good question, Oliver.
I think that's a good word to use, as opposed to, because I don't think
What-
any of
what?
these were efficiencies. I don't think any of these were like slashing cuts, right, where you were just,
Well, I mean, I like to take a step back. I think I want to add that, first of all, I want to say thank you, because I think that this represents a shift in planning that we haven't seen, I know at least since my first year on the school committee, where there was a lot of upheaval with the departure of one superintendent, lots of business departures, so this is a big change. But I think it's important for us to be looking at this. You know, I think that this year's town meeting, the special town meeting in November, was really a watershed moment about our budget and about the planning that our town is going through in order to be better set up to do the things that we want to do, including building a school. So I appreciate that I know that we asked you to be creative and be aggressive in how we look at things. And it seems like there are these things, if it's right to say, that you feel comfortable with?
I do feel comfortable. I have to say, I feel comfortable with what we've proposed. I was kind of joking with Mrs. Klondike earlier that I feel like I'm doing UBD, backwards design, and with my end goal being to fulfill my educational vision for this district, create equity and parity across the district, and build a new school for our kids and for our teachers. And, 2.5% scared the daylights out of me when you told me that I needed to do that. But this is something I can live with, because even as late as this morning, there have been changes and modifications to this plan moving forward, how best to support kids in terms of transitions and social emotional, which is one of my district priorities and district goals. So I think my message tonight to the committee is it's evolving, but I'm okay with this.
Right. So.
In terms of impact to students,
Yes.
yes.
So I know I promised this to our budget team when we met on Monday, and Evan pulled together these numbers, which is that since 2011, we saw a 2.3% increase, fiscal year 12, 3.1, fiscal year 13, a 3% increase, fiscal year 14 was a 0.7. I remember that was a very tough year, where we made hard cuts. 15 was 2.5, 16 was 4.3, 17 was 4.2, and 18 was 3.5. And, I think I see things differently now than I did 5 years ago when I joined, but I've had this conversation offline with some of you, but I think that we have to, in the spirit of what was presented to us at town meeting, really be thinking about our tax rates go up at 2.5% a year. And as taxpayers, we all want that to stop. And at the same time, how do we continue to do what we do as a school while keeping within the framework of 2.5, if not less, but at a minimum at 2.5? Because if we go over 2.5, we're taking it from other places in our town budget, like snow removal. I don't know if that's true. That's just, so I know that this is, I know that this was a major task for you to undertake in terms of shifting how you see the way we do things. And I know it's been big for us as well. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And thank you, Evan, and your team. I don't know if anybody wants to add.
Can I ask a question about, so Evan, on the special, health administrative assistant, is that what it said at the high school level? And that one?
Yep, I
Was
can-
that for data collection or something? Wasn't that for data reporting?
It was for the state reporting that our lead nurse has to fulfill. What we have in addition to that, and Mr. Katz, correct me if I'm wrong, is we have an additional nurse that does one day at the middle school, one day at the high school, and so that would remain. And if that would free up those nurses to do their paperwork, then that would be support that we would provide.
So what happens in the situation now where we have subs? Are they doing is that part of their role as a substitute
I don't know that they
nurse?
could fulfill state reporting. They
Right.
can enter into Aspen the visits, the sick visits, what the reasons are, but not in terms of reports and things that are due for the state.
And then with the Swift and Harbor at the middle school, so that was the new initiative for this year, which how many students do we have utilizing that program this year? Can you say that, or is that?
I will say it's got multi-purpose. So we use it for other services as well, so it's not, it's
So
hard
like-
to answer, I guess it's hard to answer that question.
I
So
don't
like
think our
general
caseload
health?
I don't think our caseload has been nearly as
the
high
school?
as the high school, and as we went into it thinking it would be.
Okay.
And
that's a positive.
That is a positive. I felt like we were going in anticipating a lot more crises, not that they don't occur, but we feel like we can staff those crises with one less person.
But that would still continue the program?
Oh, yes, we wouldn't take it
Yes.
away.
Okay.
But maybe reshift responsibility around.
Evan, one question. we are not paying unemployment on the crossing guards, right?
No, we don't.
Okay.
Employment was increased this year based on, we did a process of reprioritizing last year. If you remember, at this time, we added some positions that were needed. We reduced other positions that weren't needed, and based on that, we increased the funding of unemployment, and it turns out so far, we've been okay.
Of crossing guards, or?
No.
Okay,
I was
sorry, I
talking the
misunderstood.
system as a whole.
Right.
Crossing
Sorry.
guards do not get unemployment.
Okay, sorry. Anybody?
I echo your thanks to Pam and Evan for doing this, because I do remember how hard it was to hear at first when we said, don't wait for the town for a number, give us a 2.5 or less number.
I think you had to say that multiple times.
I think maybe, but I think it's worth it, because I think that your comfort level with these decisions and the fact that this is actually in the long run beneficial, because we're getting a handle on something that we haven't had a handle on for a long time. And, we do want a new school, and to be responsible within our budget is really important, so.
One of the things I've started to compile today is class sizes in neighboring communities in these grade levels. And also, I don't want to go too far out to my colleagues across the state, but with the numbers we're predicting in terms of class sizes, we're right in line with other districts. So I think that's what makes me really comfortable.
I can feel comfortable with that, especially knowing that we're gonna be able to provide classrooms for kids that have been learning in the halls or learning in the stairways, because that's the craziest thing ever, for us to be educating kids like that. So to have to shift a few kids around and to do that, to free up some classrooms is huge. That's just huge. And it'd be nice to say, you know what, let's just get portables or something, but for $250,000 each, that's not even, it doesn't even make sense. It's not.
And where would they go?
And where would they go, right? They would be on, the park spaces or whatever, and, the temporary ones at Clark that were set up in '97 are still there.
If we're better utilizing the space we have now and better utilizing the staff we have, then that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not,
So do we have a budget of a whole meeting scheduled for?
I don't know off the top of my head when that committee of the whole is scheduled.
So it would have to be pretty.
Does anybody know off the top of their?
I don't actually have it on my calendar.
I don't either, so I'm not sure that there is one, but it would need to be
In the next
next
2
week.
weeks? Yeah, next week or the
Yeah,
week
it would
after.
have to be next week.
After the.
Wait, it could be
athletics
the
might be a good
19th,
time.
the Friday the 19th, maybe, because that's like we've been doing on Fridays.
That probably makes sense, especially because we've got to do it after the athletics meeting.
Right.
So the 19th, tentatively?
I'm not here, but you can go ahead with.
19th, I know,
12:30?
do we,
We'll have it confirmed, but
Yeah, I can't make.
you can't? Okay, because we need at least 3 people in order to have quorum.
I can make the 19th.
Okay.
okay.
Well, we could look at Monday, the 22nd.
The
so-
22nd?
I mean, just look at both dates. Are you there? Are
Okay,
you here on
we'll
the
have
22nd?
Mrs. Karen.
I could do the 22nd if we started at 12:30.
We just need to be mindful of preparing a document for the 24th. That's the only,
Okay.
24th
The
is.
Come on,
24th
that
is
gives you
when we have to
48 hours,
present.
Evan, come on.
I have the key to the building on Saturdays and Sundays.
You're there anyway.
I-
Then he would do Thursday, 18th?
So we'll wait to hear from Maureen whether it be the 19th or the 22nd.
What would work for you on the 18th?
We could talk.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right, so we'll figure that out, but
Possibly
those,
the 18th,
okay.
19th, or 22nd.
I can't make the 18th.
Okay.
Okay.
So the goal for that meeting, Pam, is like for your team and all the meetings you have with leadership and principals and PTOs and PTFs, that you're sort of fine tuning some of these options.
processes.
right?
Yeah.
And like,
Mhm.
and then so we'll have a.
So our second meeting is this Friday, and then, unfortunately, our next meeting isn't until the 23rd, but we do have an agenda for
What's
this
that,
Friday.
23rd?
Oh,
your team?
Our next meeting, but I do have the PTO, PTF meeting on the 18th, so I will.
And is that just the leadership of the PTOs?
It is. It's
Okay.
something that Gary Murphy started years ago,
Yep,
and it's
I remember
something
that.
really great.
Okay.
So that will be a point of discussion for them, so I'll have more information at that time. Okay?
And you'll look to the leaders of the PTAs to schedule some other times for you to meet with?
Yes, and also
broader
the
audiences.
administrators, I've started to talk about staff meetings and maybe having a joint elementary staff meeting to talk to everybody at once. We had some good conversations with the union leadership board the other day about, involving teachers and how this plays out. And so I really do need to have those discussions with everybody.
Okay. So if there are no other questions for the superintendent or Mr. Katz, we'll move on to our curriculum.
I'm requesting that we move that to the next agenda. It can be pushed out.
Works for me. So then we'll move into the chair. Good.
Did you have a question?
You look
Oh,
like
I
you
thought-
had something.
You look like you had a question.
No.
So we have a chair report on here, but we don't have, do you have any further reports, or no? We don't have a superintendent?
No superintendent report because I would be involved with, I was so immersed in the budget.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
I didn't think you guys would notice.
I don't have I don't have a tri-chair update because it was changed from last Friday. It's going to be this Thursday instead. And in terms of the bargaining subcommittee, we have had 2 meetings to date with 2 of the units, sorry, I didn't know, I knew it was team, with both the, help me out here, the custodians and the administrative assistants. We have not yet had it scheduled with our ESPs. I don't know why, but I think
They were gathering, their side was
they're
gathering.
looking for, they're
right.
gathering more information.
Did you
Okay.
want to talk about the change in our team?
Okay. And so we've had a little bit of change in our team for some of the other members because of some additional responsibilities that Gargi has taken on. She has asked if somebody else could step in. So it's now Karen and myself who are doing the bargaining sessions. So, which works out well because Karen has the historical knowledge. And I'm the fresh face. Okay. And we have a number of meetings set up over the next month to keep this process going. So that's the only updates that I have for the bargaining. So if there aren't any questions, we'll move on to the subcommittee reports, which are, Suzanne, all you.
Okay, so we don't have any new policies this month. We're just gonna go through and do the ones that we talked about last month. I don't have the domestic policy in front of me. Can I just skip that one for now and just do the big packet first?
Yeah.
You want it? I'm just
Yeah,
gonna-
Suzanne.
So we were set with this policy because your office had changed the language to decide how leave would be paid. And that was the big question on this. And then Ted had a question, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was about
Information,
the privacy of information with the order.
Yeah.
And it isn't relevant for this, like what we were sort of assuming. I asked Mike, and it's all good. There's no way anyone would get that information. It's not. So anyway, first read, that one change that we all thought was fine, and
Right,
Yep.
so we're good to just,
to vote on.
this policy as it is.
Okay,
So
so can I have a motion?
GBGE, domestic violence leave policy, make a motion to accept it? with
I would,
these
yeah, I would
changes.
make a motion that we accept the policy GBGE.
All in favor?
I'll second it.
Oh, no, I thought you,
It's- yeah,
sorry.
it's fine.
Okay, so Karen
Karen made the
Made the
motion.
motion, and Ted seconded it. Okay. And all in favor? Okay, motion passes.
All right, and so the next packet was IBH through 10 more. So IBH was special instructional programs and accommodations.
Wait,
Wait, what?
IHB.
Oh, sorry. It's just my dyslexia. We read this, and we were all okay with the changes, which were basically nothing substantive, mostly editing and changing, just omitting some words to be more current. So we were okay with that one, so I'm gonna go to the next one. IHBEA, English language learners, same situation here, we were okay with the changes. We crossed out names of
No
the
child left
specific tests to
behind.
use and the names of acts, so it's kind of a little bit more of a generic policy, so we were okay with that one. Instructional materials, this one was gonna be the one policy used, and there was 3 policies: textbook selections, supplementary materials, and special interest materials that were gonna be deleted from the policy manual. And in doing so, we wanted to make sure that this policy sort of encompassed everything that those policies had, if there's anything, so we added an additional bullet to this one. So we added bullet number 7 to cover some of this special interest material, and it was about, it reads, any sponsored material will be subjected to additional special criteria. A, any expression of point of view should be clearly identified. Any advertising that appears on or with any material should be in good taste and unobtrusive, and the source of all material should be clearly identified. So we were gonna add that to make up for losing special interest materials. So that was good to go with those changes.
Okay.
On to library resources. First read, again, we were okay with the changes. It was just, we took out some words that aren't in the MASC policy from our policy to,
Microfiche.
yeah, exactly. Update the language to make it a little more current and relevant. So we were okay with that one. And then now onto the social media policy. This is the one that maybe we were gonna talk to Mrs. Farley about.
We did, yeah, and I
And-
didn't get to, so I'm
Okay,
hoping that
so,
next week.
so anyway, I have lots of information that we can
Oh, this
maybe
was,
approve.
this was like how
Okay.
coaches communicate?
Yes.
Right, so I had a long talk with Mike Gilbert about this, and so if we all are in agreement, we could maybe vote to pass this, with the caveat that if we talk to her at the workshop meeting and she has some issues, we could open it back up or something. Or we could just not vote on it and vote on it next meeting. So we can just decide, but, so the big concern was, that, bullet 1 says, improper fraternization with students using social media or other electronic means, and then it gets defined. So bullet A says, we're gonna say, instead of teachers, we're gonna say staff may not friend or follow current students on social media. We agreed to that. We were gonna make teachers staff to be more all-encompassing. The second bullet was the same, the third bullet was the same. And the fourth bullet, we were having problems with, or bullet number, letter D. All contact and messages by coaches with team members shall be sent to all team captains or members, except for messages concerning medical or academic privacy matters, in which case the messages will be copied to the appropriate administrator. And then we were concerned that, how are we keeping these public records?
Yeah.
Like in the event that we need to recreate texts or emails or whatever, he suggested that we could include that messages get sent to captains or members and the athletic director. He also said,
It's a lot of text messages for the
it's a lot of
athletic
text
director.
messages, and he said that never has there been a problem yet in Massachusetts, like no one's really dealt with trying to recreate sort of these volumes of public information. And
So he doesn't know what other
So
districts
he
are
says it
doing?
hasn't been an issue, and you can usually go to services, like if you use AT&T or whatever, you can recreate a lot of this, and you can actually see a lot of these messages through them if you have an issue and you need to,
So if you needed a
Go back
legal,
and
so you
get-
could get a legal,
so you can get a legal sort of like search for that kind of stuff if there's really an issue, but he said if you want to suggest that they go to your ADs, so that person is also looking at the communications, you know,
But hadn't we thought of, were there any apps that would track, that they could use to
yeah,
communicate?
he didn't know of anything like that, and that's like why we can ask Mrs. Farley some of these
Freshman
questions.
team uses, or the basketball uses the Remind app.
Yeah,
Basketball or
so this is the situation. Everyone's using something different, and every coach uses it differently, because I know, like, my daughters who have been captains, the coach will text both captains, you know, tell the whole team there's practice, right? And then my daughter might text him back independently, like, you know, got it, not the whole group, right? And then the next text from him comes to just her.
Right.
Like, it's just, like, we have no way of patrolling this. Like, it's like weird to set this policy that we can't enforce.
yeah.
I think we should pull it out and talk to.
I would prefer to pull it out and have a
Yeah.
conversation
Okay.
with them.
It's also, like, for my clubs, like, it's like, we're just, the best way to communicate is a group chat. And so we're just gonna do that, and like, we don't have the teacher in the group chat, and we don't go through this whole thing.
Right, like it's saying you actually do need to have your coach or your
Right.
teacher in the group chat. Like when you have a Facebook group or whatever, like the teacher or the coach is supposed to be in it, and probably the athletic director or someone else, like another adult. I mean, it's
But
for
is
like,
that reasonable? I mean, that's sort of like having a group that is
Well-
doing homework together.
well, it's
that the
reasonable,
teacher wouldn't
it's
be
reasonable
involved.
to protect the students and to protect the staff. I mean, you know, to have like two adults or have multiple people in on conversations seems like pretty prudent way to protect people. You know, I mean, but.
Except that we wouldn't have, you know, we wouldn't insist that any, you know, after-school mentoring or tutoring, that there's always a second adult in the room, or
But it's
that
not,
there's-
that's not our
Talking about social media
jurisdiction or
communication.
whatever. I mean,
Well-
people actually don't get to tutor at school, right? We don't let
Okay,
tutoring
well,
happen at
after,
school.
extra help after school.
I think this conversation needs to go to the workshop next week.
Okay, all right, skip
So
it.
pull it out.
Okay,
Okay.
take this one out of here. Okay, so the next one was about field trips. And we needed to check our bullet number 5. Our bullet number 5 is special to our policy, not to MASC policy. And I checked a whole bunch of other policies that were online, just to look at what they had. And what this field trip policy is about school day field trips. So instead of saying all trips allow student access without regard to family ability to pay, like the way that reads, we think like, you know, going to DC or whatever. So it should say something like, here's 2 different examples. School-sponsored trips that take place during the school day will be accessible to all students regardless of financial inability to pay. Or all trips allow equal access and reasonable accommodations, financial and other, by all interested students. So,
Actually, I like the first
I
one.
like the first one.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine, it just sort of clarifies that this policy pertains to,
Well, because we were talking about it, like
right.
overnight
We
trips.
actually have a policy for overnight trips.
Right.
Okay,
So,
okay.
so
you're
So
going
if
to
you guys
Salem
are
for the
all in
day with your
agreement
class and
With
you need
that, with the
to
way you
spend 10
read, can you
bucks and
read
you
that
don't
first
have
one
it,
again?
right.
reasonable
Right,
accommodations.
so it says, so the new bullet 5 will read, school-sponsored, the superintendent will establish regulations to ensure that all school-sponsored trips that take place during the school day will be accessible to all students regardless of financial inability to pay.
Yes,
I like that.
that's the one.
Okay?
Okay.
All right, that's what we're gonna use. Okay, the next one, IJOB, community resources person/speakers, that one was fine. We made the minor language changes. And then the next one, academic achievement, this is the one you guys were gonna look at, but in the event that no one did, I have some opinions.
No.
The right person is doing this
I had a long
job.
conversation with Mike Gilbert at MASC about why we might have this policy different from theirs, and it probably did pertain to a certain event that may have happened, and a certain need, someone felt to draft something more specific. But he was encouraging us to go back and use the one on the second page that's highlighted in blue, and call that IK, Student Progress Reports to Parents and Guardians. Most of those points are in the one that we also have. So what happened is, we actually have IK in our policy, we just call it IKB or something. And our IK is our new sort of made-up one.
So we get rid of IK.
So we just take the MCAS, I mean, the,
We're gonna take the MASC one,
right, thank
We're
you.
going to get rid of our IK.
yeah,
Right.
and we're
Part
gonna
of
use,
our
and
motion
we're gonna
has
use
to be
theirs.
to replace
Right.
IKAB.
With our, the motion is to replace IKAB with IK,
Right, okay.
right? And delete our IK and replace it,
Yes.
we wanna
I'm
delete
so
it.
appreciative that you do this.
Yeah,
Thank
right?
you.
Okay, the next one is graduation requirements.
Okay.
We were gonna go with what's on the second page, not the red on the first page. We were gonna start the policy, all students are required to earn 30 credits each year in grades 9, 10, 11, 12, and comply with all state accountability requirements to qualify for a Swampscott High School diploma. Students must attain at least 120 credits to participate in the graduation ceremony, and these credits must include the following, and then we list all the courses that they have to take. I did notice that I have written down here 4 full years of math, but apparently it's only 3 at the high school.
Currently, yes, but we are trying very hard to.
Well, I know, like,
Require the
Well,
4.
sure, because any state university, right, requires 4 years.
Right,
but-
and also Mass Core recommendations are 4 years of
But, so, I'm
mathematics.
just gonna change this to say 3, because that's
That's
what
what it
it
is.
is
Yeah.
now. Right, I have to say that. And then, also, I noticed,
How does that change? How do we get that to
Um,
be changed?
We've got things that we need to do on our end first.
Right,
Okay.
so it has to be 3 then, right?
right,
Okay,
right.
okay.
And then also, at the bottom of this paper, I just noticed 1/4 of expository writing, 2 during junior, senior year. Like, I know that's a requirement, I saw that in the district handbook, but just an FYI, Mrs. Condike, it's not in the guidance, it's on the guidance page at the high school. They have a PDF of graduation requirements, this isn't on there. Just FYI, I just noticed that.
Right, so we are looking at programming that will be a much longer piece. Expositor, yeah, I think
I
it's
just
called
want to
something
say,
else
it's in
now.
the district handbook that this course is required. I mean, I know my kids took it, but it's just not in the guidance
Okay,
PDF.
It's also weird that it says 1/4 in freshman, sophomore year, 1/4 in junior, because the way I took it, I think the way it happens now is it's 1 semester, like straight through, so there's not,
Wait, it's not a quarter anymore?
no. It's one, it's also not called, it's called running across the curriculum now, almost positive.
Yeah, you're right,
And-
actually. You're right, actually.
Yeah, and it happened,
You are
yeah,
right.
it's a
You are
semester.
right, you took it, you are right. What should I do about that?
Is there a way,
Why does it, the
is that,
actual?
what,
I know, do we
is
have
it-
to name
do
the
we have to
actual
name the
class?
courses in the,
Yeah, I guess it doesn't really.
Do you know what I mean?
could we refer to another document?
excuse me, Madam Chair.
Come on down,
Could we
Mrs.
have
Thomas.
our English
Yep.
department
Please.
gently come down?
We're gonna get real information.
Help us sort this out.
Thank you for noticing.
It's right across the curriculum, and
Right.
it's 1 semester, freshman or sophomore year. We did have it split for 2 quarters years ago, so something must not have been updated. So it is 1 semester, and it's writing across the curriculum, not expository.
But it's in freshman or sophomore year, or could it be junior and senior year?
It should be during freshman or sophomore year.
Which makes sense.
Thank goodness you were here.
I know, right?
So I'm gonna write 1 semester of writing across the curriculum to be taken during freshman or sophomore year.
Do we need to put the year in
No,
there?
actually, we don't, because I'm sure when students transfer and they have to take it, right.
So I think, so we go back to the question is there a way to write this,
So that we don't have to change it
so that
every
we
time?
don't have the specifics of the
Okay,
coursework and we can refer to another document?
Okay, so there is, and last time we had this discussion, you said not to.
Of course.
But if you want to go back, I just say, I was saying we can do it really generically, or we can keep it like our policy has this stuff in it. I mean,
What do you recommend?
just like I did it.
Okay, then I'm with that.
I'm just kidding. I'm
How
open.
long has it been called writing across the curriculum?
That's actually pretty new because, yeah, I was
Long
gonna say,
enough.
my first 2 kids took expository writing, and my
Yeah, I
last
think it was
kid
my
took writing.
freshman year.
Okay, let's put it in.
It's been there 3 years. I say we make it part of it.
It's not an
But,
experiment.
but this needs to be changed. I mean, the district handbook is not up to date on these things.
Right,
Okay.
and we're
Wednesday.
looking at everything as we're moving forward, so things,
I'm just
Right.
saying.
I am making note.
Okay, on to JCA, assignment of students to schools. This one, this one was fine. Didn't have any problem with this. We were gonna change. Yeah, we had some questions about to permit secondary school students to take courses not offered in their assigned school. That was important to keep in here so people could take, dual enrollment somewhere. That was, and we crossed out all the names of all the laws per MASC. Entrance age, we were good with that. We were going to, make sure it said age before prior, the age of entrance will be 5 years, or of age prior to the first day of school, not give a date or not say September. And then, the last one was, oh, that's not the last one. JHD, exclusions and exemption from school attendance. We have a statement in there saying, so there's a whole bunch of reasons why you can deny someone admission to our school. And for the first two are legal, or laws, right? If someone's too old, or they've graduated from another school already, you don't have to accept them. Or if someone is too old to enter kindergarten, you don't have to accept them. And then we have that one saying, having been expelled during the same school year from the district or any district in the Commonwealth. We can't say that because it's illegal.
Okay. We
So
suspect,
if,
right?
actually, if we expel someone, apparently we have to offer them an education.
Yeah, it's
Like,
ours.
but not just educate them, alternatively, we have to offer them a way back too, into the same school with modifications, or conditional.
Right.
Yeah, and also, if anyone's coming from another district in the Commonwealth, we have to take them. So, if they've been expelled somewhere else and they move here, we have to take them. Can be conditional, there can be conditions, but we have to take them. Right, so we need to delete that sentence because that's not true.
Can I go back to JEB? Because I think.
Which one is that?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
the one above it.
Entrance.
I thought we were gonna keep September 1st. I don't recall. It's gonna be a huge problem if we go
Oh,
to,
wait, did I cross out the wrong thing?
yeah,
Hold on.
I really need it to be September 1st. Otherwise, every year, we're gonna be looking at,
What year is it, or can we?
Oh,
what's
you're
the
right,
first
I
day?
crossed
Push it
it,
back?
you're right, you're right,
Can we
you're
push
right.
it back this year so
no,
that my kid can go?
I was
You're
having
right,
a
my
little heart
no-
palpitations. I didn't even hear the next one.
Sorry, you're right,
Don't
my
know what you
notes.
said about that one, but this one's the problem.
I was starting to know.
Right, I was gonna, sorry,
Here too.
Nothing to do with the first day of
No,
school,
children who will be
Imagine
5 years of
Children will be
age
5
before
years of
September
age before
1st.
September
prior
1st.
to September 1st.
having nothing to do with
Prior
the first
to
day of school.
Oh,
Thank you.
So there should be nothing about the first day of school.
No, nothing about the first day of school.
Oh.
That would be a nightmare.
Okay.
So now it's, saying about age.
So now,
right.
so now we can talk about
Wait, so
attendance.
number one's gonna say, children who will be 5 years of age prior to
September first.
September 1st will
1st.
be eligible to enter kindergarten.
Yes, correct.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
And we were going to.
And we're gonna
what
get
were
rid
we-
of that second,
Get rid of
And we were
that.
rid
gonna
of
get
that.
rid of that
The
second
admission
one.
children
because that
birthday
makes
party.
it
Yeah.
too
Right.
easy to say, well, my kid's brilliant,
There's no wish.
they need to go to kindergarten.
Yeah.
Right, or I just need them out of the house.
Yeah.
Okay, do you wanna go back and do the next one?
No, I'm
Okay.
joking.
You heard that?
I kind of did too. I can think about two things at once.
And, the last one, alcohol, tobacco, and drug use for students is prohibited. You were okay with the changes in this one too?
Yep.
We were just updating the language to say, at any school-sponsored event as
Right.
well.
Okay,
So,
so I will entertain a motion
Sorry.
to approve,
Do you want me to read
what's
them
not
out?
all, yeah, it's not all of them,
Yeah,
so.
so, right, so we would move, so let me do what we're doing. The first thing I'm gonna do, let's do this separate. I
on, we got-
move that we delete policy IKAB and replace it with policy IK.
with
One's that
MAS,
separate. With
MASC policy, okay.
IK. And that's the one, we already discussed it.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Unanimous?
And then I'm gonna read all the others.
Wait,
that
can we
are
also make a
included.
motion? There's three policies we have to delete, or four policies we have to delete, in addition to changing those.
Okay, so let's do the changes and then we'll do the deletions.
But these are these are
Yeah.
the changes.
Those are changes, but these are different. These are the
Those are
ones,
different.
these are those textbook ones we need to
Okay.
delete.
Okay. So these are the changes. So I move that we change the following policies as we just discussed. Policy IHB, policy IHBEA, policy IJ, policy IJLA, IJOA, IJOB, IKF, JCA, JEB, JHD, and JICH.
Got that?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Unanimous? And now I'll entertain a motion to delete
All right.
some
We had a mo-
policies.
I just lost the paper, put it on.
But you're tabling the athletic.
I make a motion to delete our policy, our current policy, IK, IJJ, IJK, and IJM.
I second.
All in favor? Unanimous.
And then for next time, for our workshop meeting, we'll bring this. So do you think Maureen could just email this policy to Kelly
Yes.
before?
What's the letter?
Sorry. It's,
Oh, you don't know that?
No.
it's IJNDD.
Okay.
Currently, it's called policy on social networking,
Yeah.
but it's gonna be
IJNDD.
policy on social media.
Well, that was good. Okay,
That's all I got.
thank you. Okay. Next, we have the consent agenda, which is designed to expedite the handling of routine and miscellaneous business in the district. The school committee may adopt the entire consent agenda with one motion. At the request of any member, any item can be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda for discussion. Tonight, we have the regular session minutes from December 13th. We have the budget subcommittee minutes from December 8th. We have a donation from Pathways for some cafe tables. We have a donation from P. Barish, the E. Grocky High School Art Classroom. And then we lastly have a couple of warrants, number 1823, 1824, 1825, and 1827.
Can I just highlight the cafeteria tables?
Please.
Because there's
So
a,
before you do, let me just say, can I have a
oh,
motion
sorry.
to accept?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
So there is a photograph included in your packets of these cafeteria tables, and knowing that we have some elementary schools that have really shaky tables, these are like $1,500 tables. And so we're really incredibly grateful when we got the call from Pathways to donate these, and we're incredibly grateful for them, that's all.
And whose Pathways?
It was, I don't know who they are, it's an adult education and training center, and they just had a connection to one of the schools, I believe it was Hadley, and called and said, would you like these? And so, that was one of, a great
And
find.
they gave us 7?
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Just out of curiosity, as someone who's been through the schools recently and taken lots of pictures, where are they being stored? Because there's not,
They're not coming for a while.
oh, because there's
Yeah.
not an
No.
ounce of space anywhere.
They're not coming for a bit, but we did want to get the donation accepted.
So like, these are not replacing, for example, the ones in Stanley that are falling out of the wall?
We don't know where
They
they're going
could,
yet.
perhaps?
Probably going to be
Okay,
further discussion.
okay, good.
But I just think
It's
this
a
is-
nice donation.
It's a very generous donation.
Okay.
So you
And
need a
how,
second?
and how about, and just a curiosity, is that a parent donating for art supplies? Like just cash for art supplies? The other
There's
one?
a copy of a $300 check. I don't know the story
No,
behind that.
it's a lot more than that.
The check, no, it's $300.
Oh, sorry,
Maybe that-
it's a 3,000.
my mistake, but that's,
I
so
I
it's,
don't know the story.
I have a little
behind
bit of information.
Oh, great.
It had to do it with, at the high school, that was a new teacher came in, and the program didn't have sufficient supplies, and the teacher was looking at spending some of her own money, and then when the word spread, and parent decided to contribute to the program.
It's really generous.
Both very generous donations.
Proud on us.
So, I have a second.
Second,
Did I
you
have a
need a
second?
second.
Okay, all in favor? It's unanimous. And then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? We are adjourned.